Welcome to the Cross the Line Podcast. My name is Carlos Smith. Today's episode is sponsored by Big Ben's Desserts and Charlene's Home Cooking on 1136 East Blackstock Road. Today we have another very special guest with us today. He's the founder of Tolbert Consulting Group, Mr. Julius Tolbert. How you doing?
Hey, you're doing fantastic, brother. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me. So before I start the conversation, I just want to give people a little bit about the backstory, how we actually met. It was a few months ago at Jared's Success is My Power Conference.
Yep.
I already knew Ben, I already knew Brandy, and I already knew Marcus. So this was my first time having that chance to, interact with you on that on the stage, as we did the panel. And it was I've been telling everybody that the panel, everybody on the panel brought something special to the table. And I always say, man, when y'all was speaking, I felt like every word that y'all were giving to the audience, it felt like it was for me personally, because it was like, man, the advice y'all were giving us, like, man, that's the stuff that I needed to hear from me in that moment, that particular moment. So, we had a chance to, talk a little bit after the conference, and I know we both had a lot of stuff going on after that. So, I was like, man, I just still want to have you on. I didn't forget about you. So now we had a chance to finally get down and have a conversation, sit down and have a conversation. So thank you again.
Yes, sir.
Pleasure. Kind of just reflecting on that, on the panel, on the conference. When you look back on it, what was your initial take, having a chance to sit back and reflect on it? What was your take on the conference?
Talking about the end result of I think it was a well attended, great conference of people that were eager to learn how to kind of navigate their journey in whatever kind of industry they was in. So I think that, like you said, I think that everybody had or seen value in the different panelists that was there and the message that each individual person had, for sure.
What was something that you learned or something that you took away personally from seeing all of those people eager for information and learning from those other people on the panel? What was something that you learned, something that you took away from it personally that helped you?
Yeah, I think that it's kind of twofold. I think on one side of it, it was the importance of the work that I do, because there was so many people that was eager for the knowledge and eager to hear other people's experiences and how they was able to kind of get on the other side of things. Mm-hmm. And then I think that on the other part of it, it was I'm always a student, so being able to hear other people's story, and then just like you saying, finding myself in those stories or being able to connect and saying, okay, I've been in that situation or I'm currently in that situation, and that's how they move. So in a lot of ways, it's being just as much as the teacher as the student.
You've been in business for a while, and successful business, and you get a chance to hear other people's story and share your journey as well. What does it do for you personally, like for instance, when you're at a conference like that or speaking anywhere, but you get a chance to, share your journey with somebody else? What does that do for you personally when you get to share your experience?
Yeah, I think it gives me an opportunity to reflect on my journey and kind of how I got there. I think that when you're kind of in the grind and when you kind of got your head down just kind of doing it, you don't spend as much time reflecting. And then so when you're speaking or having that opportunity to coach to a group of people, that's an opportunity for me to kind of just kind of look at the man in the mirror in a lot of ways and kind of recognize my own journey, the things I've done well and the things that I may have slipped up and and kind of corrected myself.
Absolutely. So let's dive a little bit more into your story. When people hear your name, the name Julius Tolbert, what do you want people to think when they hear your name?
A serial entrepreneur, someone that is very passionate about his people, seeing his people move successfully, progressively through their journey. I think I've seen a lot because I've talked to so many business owners. I've seen a lot of struggle, seen a lot of passion. In the same time, a lot of, integrity and, a lot of zest, but then just not knowing certain things is kind of holding them back. And then being able to kind of help them kind of see through those trees. I've gotten a lot of value from that. So I think someone who really cares about not just business, but Black business. And really wanting to help us as a community move forward and actually have equitable state in what we're creating.
So, where are you originally from? Are you from this area?
Yeah, I'm from Spartanburg.
Okay. So what was life like for you growing up? Like, how was your childhood? Did you come from a family of entrepreneurs? Like, what was your childhood like?
Yeah, so pretty much I was born into a family of entrepreneurs. So everybody in my family was an entrepreneur. It doesn't matter. My granddaddy, my grandmother, my mother, my uncle, you name it, they had their own business. And so my childhood was, I spent a lot of time with my grandmother, and she was the accountant or the bookkeeper of the family. And so I spent a lot of time kind of watching her handle a lot of HR related situations for payroll and different employees and the different things that would go in and out of those things. So I would say my childhood was kind of being the nosy little kid in these older people's businesses, kind of like just kind of trying to figure out what the big people were talking about.
Do you think that makes the difference? Of course, when you grow up as children, when you grow up, you're able, and you become an adult, you can make your own decisions. But do you feel like that was what kind of like made you, kind of like become an entrepreneur, just being around a family of entrepreneurs? Did you feel like that was kind of like already like a natural path for you?
Yes, I think that definitely played a huge role in it. I think my family wanted me to go one way with it. They wanted me to kind of keep the family business going. We was in logistics, so 18-wheeler trucks and things like that. And they kind of seen me to kind of be the torch carrier past when my granddad and them kind of wanted to step aside. And I did want to kind of help, with the family business, but I don't think from the aspect of which they kind of viewed me initially. My granddaddy was actually out there with the employees driving trucks himself and, kind of really hands-on. And I was a very analytical person. So I've known ever since a child, I was a person that was a very critical thinker. And so I would always present options to them like, hey, I can help the company get on the stock market and all this stuff, even though I didn't know nothing of what I was talking about, but that was just kind of where my mind was at. So I think that just being around that environment definitely impacted my career.
Did you feel like it was any, expectations at all coming from a family of entrepreneurs that you feel like you had to like live up to those expectations or?
Most definitely. I felt that it is not that they put it on me, but I did have a sense of that I had to, in a lot of ways, one up it. I had to not necessarily prove myself. I don't think that's the right word, but I definitely wanted to make my family proud and kind of continue the legacy of entrepreneurship.
So, in school, was there anything else outside of like the family business that you gravitated towards, or was it sports or music, anything else, or was it just strictly like you were in a family entrepreneur, so you just knew automatically that was like you wanted to run like a business?
Yeah, well, I think that early on I knew that when somebody asked me what did I want to be when I grew up, it was I wanted to be a mogul. So that was my thing. So I knew that I didn't want to not just own one business. I wanted to have my hands a part of a lot of businesses. But that was mostly my family dynamic and what I dealt with there. But outside of that, in like going to school, I was just like a normal kid, So I played basketball, played football, I did the things that, that kids would do. And so I can't really say there was anything that was uniquely different about that as it relates to entrepreneurship. But I was, from the beginning, always in kind of like these gifted classes. So I always was kind of separated from the majority of people in these honor classes and all these different accelerated kind of gifted programs. So I kind of knew from that standpoint that, I was sharp mentally. But nothing really in school, really, I would say, if anything, it kind of doubled down on what I wanted to do, because I started to kind of see, not that school wasn't important, but I started to see, in a lot of ways I think I was too smart, because I was starting to say, all right, well, this teacher who's teaching me business doesn't own a business.
Exactly.
So I would start to question things. I would go home and I would question, my parents and my grandmother and my grandparents. It's like, hey, like this teacher is teaching business, and I asked them what business that they own, and they didn't say they didn't own a business. So then I go back to them thinking they was a source for all the answers, and was like, how is that possible? Somebody could teach that, but not have that, and then so that opened up a whole nother door. So I think that if anything, in school, I knew I needed it, but I also knew for what I was going to do, I didn't need it. I did not need to spend. I didn't need a doctorate in it.
And I was going to ask you about that as well. Coming from a family of entrepreneurs, running businesses, and I was going to ask, how did that conflict with your education? Because like I said, the teacher didn't have a business, but they were teaching business courses. But you have a family of entrepreneurs that run businesses on a daily basis. So they're teaching you one thing, you're learning something from your family.
Yep.
Of course, you still need to get an education.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to ask, how did that kind of conflict with what you were learning? Did at times did you make you want to challenge the teacher's knowledge, or how was it?
Yeah, I think that I did challenge the teacher's knowledge, but it wasn't based off of anything my family was telling me that was contradicting it. In a lot of ways, my family's viewpoint on the school system and the education was, until you really know what you want to be, until you really know what you want to do, you need the school. You need certain, there are certain things you need to know how to do, public speaking, you need to know math, you need to know certain things. But then as you start to kind of really understand who you are and what you want to be, then let that kind of dictate the schooling that you may need after that. So at that time, if I'm 15 years old and I don't quite know, but then later I'm going to become a doctor, then obviously, I need an extensive amount of schooling. But if I'm going to be what my family is, or an extension of that, then I already had a lot of the nuts and bolts of that just from that dynamic.
Talk a little bit about the mindset of a young teenager, that age, with all that knowledge. So for me, I didn't really pick up on entrepreneurship really until after college, and then once I got into the real world, it was kind of like, man, I felt like. And we was talking about this yesterday with Darren, and I was like, to a certain degree, I was like, man, the school system really didn't give us those life skills and prepare us for the real world. It wasn't until I finally got out there, and I told him one of my moments was when I finally, about 6 months after graduation, and I got this student loan bill in the mail, and it was like $500 a month, and I'm like, how, I just graduated 6 months ago, how can somebody just fresh out of college, pay this type of money? And I'm like, man, school didn't really, prepare me for these different type of things that were coming my way. So for you, what was that moment for you? Well, let me go back. After high school, did you go right into college, or did you go?
No, I went to the Navy.
You went to the Navy?
Yep. Okay. So at that time, out of high school, I was kind of in a place of, what did I really want to do, and kind of evaluating, where my time best served at. And I went into the Navy. Did 2 6 months deployments with them throughout my term in the Navy. And that was literally the best. I think outside of being born into a family of entrepreneurs, going to the Navy was the second best thing that happened to me. Because I think that in the Navy, the two biggest things that I got from the Navy as far as the value was a sense of discipline that I think is still serving me today. How I go about doing what I do is very methodical, it's very organized. And when I think back to where that came from, it definitely came from military training. The second thing it did for me is it really opened my eyes to how big this world really is. Coming from a small town like Spartanburg, a lot of people in this area think going to Atlanta is like truly going out of town. You know what I'm saying? And so when now I'm in the Navy, I'm actually across the world for 6 months at a time. I'm able to see countries that people would never see. Talk to people that people would never talk to, and ask real life questions to try to understand. So I think that with me being raised and just having having that analytical mind, then being placed in countries where I could ask questions and have a dialogue, or like, hey, why is this way? Why do y'all view America like this? And what I'm saying? And just to hear these real responses, it really opened my eyes and gave me a different worldview.
I think for me, I've only been, when you talk, it's crazy how you say, going to Atlanta and people look at it like totally different. For me, I didn't get on a plane for the first time until, it was going on 3 years ago now. I went to, my first flight I ever took was to Jacksonville, Florida. And, I would go to Charlotte, Atlanta plenty of times. But just traveling. I flew across the country, flew to California, but just getting that different perspective. Even though I haven't been out of the country yet, but just traveling to different parts of the country, man, it gives you just a different perspective on life, and it shows you it's so much more to life. Do you feel like people, I want to talk a little bit about that comfort zone? Do you feel like people just stay in their comfort zone of not trying to travel because they're so used to the norm of where they are? Talk about that comfort zone.
Yeah, I think that most people are just they're controlled by fear. And so, and I say fear as the fear of the unknown, and so that what kind of keeps people in their comfort zone. That's what keeps people living in their hometown their whole life, and very rarely, traveling out or taking, the risk they need to take in business and all of this, is that they just fear the unknown. And one thing that even when even though coming from a entrepreneurial background where I've seen, people excel, having my own experience, I still dealt with that early on, just feeling like, man, will this work? If it doesn't work, what would they say about it? And then a lot of things that I did it here in the upstate where, a lot of my peers, that I went to school with and, that, see me on a day-to-day basis, they are watching me, and so it was an immense amount of pressure, trying to continue to do these things. But what I realized is that's the only way to success. And so at some point I realized like failing is a part of the process. So where most people run from failure, what you really need to do is run into it. Like you need to fail as much as possible, because the more you fail, the more you build that muscle memory. And then on the other side of that is a success.
That was actually going to be one of my questions later on down the line, but I just jumped right into it. A lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of successful people, they always say, you have to learn how to fail to succeed. So how do you know if you've actually failed at something?
Well, my definition of failure is just simply not achieving what you set the target out to be. So I believe success and failure is subjective to the person.
Right.
Okay. Failure looks different for everybody. Success looks different for everybody. So if you set a target and you come up short, I think that could be considered failure. But failure, we have to, especially in our community, we have to change the emotion that we have around certain words. You know what I'm saying? Failure should not have a negative connotation to it. Failure should be positive. Failure means that you tried something and you came up a little short. Okay? So then what is the solution to that? Try again. Okay? You only lose when you quit. And so quitting should have a negative connotation to it. Shouldn't be shifted in no type of way. Excuses shouldn't be made for you just throwing your hands up in the air. So that's what I believe. I think failure is something that we realize we have to have.
And I think, especially in our community, it's like you want to seek that validation, or you're afraid to try these business ideas because of what people will say about you, or say you can't do something, or they'll man, your business is not up to par where it needs to be. How do we get our own people, out of that mindset of, not worrying about what somebody else has to do, just figuring out, carving our own path, because regardless, people are going to talk anyway. So whether it's good or bad, we should want our people to succeed, but it's not going to always be that. You can't make everybody happy, but how do we get our own people, out of that mindset of, worrying about what other people have to say about, what they do in life as far as business? Yeah,
for sure. I think it all starts with mindset. Okay. I think that what we're going to have to do as a community is spend more time on self. Okay, because the reason why we care so much about what other people think is that we have a low self-esteem. So we have low confidence in what we're our own abilities. You know what I'm saying? And so we need to spend more time with ourselves. We need to read more as a community.
That's
You know,
right.
it doesn't necessarily have to be reading a book. Digest the book however you can digest it. If it's an audio book, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Digest the information. The more you know, the better off you are. The more confident that you're going to be in your own abilities. Then the more confident you are in what you can do, the less you care about what somebody else says. Because you know that, hey, this is what I'm doing, and it doesn't matter what somebody else says, doesn't matter what they do, it does not dictate where I'm headed. So I think that that's a part of it, and then us not having, so mindset is a part of it, and then us not having a true destination to where we're going. And so me being a business coach, I always ask people, the first consultation, like, what is the goal? What is the end game? You know, what is the dream? And you'll realize right off the top, majority of people don't know. And then if they do say something out their mouth, it's very vague. So I would argue that's the reason why you didn't achieve it. Because you're not specific enough about what that is, so you don't have a true GPS or a guide. So that means any opportunity that comes your way, you're going to think it's a good opportunity, and you're going to take it, not knowing that it's probably going to take you off the journey of what you said you wanted to be. So just like if me and you got in the car, you just talking about California. If we said we was going to go to California, neither one of us been there, we would have to set that GPS, right?
Right.
Because if we don't, we're going to wind up in New York somewhere. And so that's what's happening with people in their life. Hey, I really want to be rich. But when you really uncover that, they don't have good practices day to day that would lend to somebody becoming rich. You know, so that's the reason I would argue why you're broke. You know what I'm saying? And so that's the thing. So everybody has this ability in them. So I don't think it's nothing special about me. I don't think it's nothing special about you. I don't think it's nothing special about anybody. Because we all have the same, not same talents, but we all have gifts.
Absolutely.
And our jobs is to find out what that gift is and become a master at it so it could add the value to the world.
I want to ask you about something that you said at the conference and tied into actually something I listened to, been listening to the past couple of days. When we were at the conference, and I think it's something along the lines of, I might not have the exact words right, but you were saying you counted to three, and you like, on the count of three, I want everybody in their own mind just to say, I think $1 million, something like that. And you were just talking about, you know, that voice, your inner voice that you need to listen to.
Yep.
And it made me, I was listening to this conversation that Oprah did. She did about 7-8 years ago at Stanford University. And, you know, she was saying, you know, people would tell her, you know, when she was moving up the ladder, you know, she was living in Maryland at the time, and they would tell her, you're making great money, stay here. But she said she always felt like something wasn't right. She said she was always telling herself it was something more out there. She was listening to herself. So that made me think back to, you know, when you were at the conference and you were telling everybody to, you know, listen to their inner voice. Talk a little bit about their inner voice, and what is that voice in us that is like pushing us, you know, to really go after what we want.
Yeah, and it took me a while to truly wrap my head around this, but that inner voice is the real you. And so, like me and you right now, we have to understand what this is. Who you are in the physical form, who I am in a physical form is a vessel. So the spirit is the real you. And so what happens is that we try to, and a lot of times it's where, you know, really spiritual people say, you know, where you have faith and you need to follow God, or how, you know, you're kind of doing things on your own and not on God's way, is because you are living and trying to do things on your own when you're really, or you're thinking that the treasure or whatever you're looking for is out here in the world, and it's not. And the thing about it is what you're looking for. It doesn't matter what it is. You're not telling me exactly what you're looking for, but I'm telling you whatever it is, it's not out here. It's in here. So whatever it is, seek it inside. The treasure is in us, not in out here. And so the more you uncover or you ask yourself why things are where they are, then you're going to start to uncover why you're doing these things. And now you'll have an opportunity to impact that, whatever that may be. So let's say if it's a financial thing, hey, you know, I have aspirations to be rich, but I don't have $1 to my name. Well, could that be rooted in some paradigm? You know, how was your family? How was money taught to you? You know what I'm saying? How did your parents have a good relationship with money? You know, where did your beliefs in money come from? And so you would have to have that conversation with yourself to kind of unpack that. And it's not like your parents did something wrong, they just didn't know any better.
Yep.
So if you're trying to elevate past what your parents did, then you're going to have to unlearn some things and then learn some things that your parents didn't learn. And then maybe they can learn it from you later.
Absolutely.
You know, but that's what the evolution's going to have to look like. You know, because if not, then you're going to repeat yourself. So think about how many people in poverty is in generation after generation of poverty. Mm-hmm. You know, all they know is their parents on Section 8 and food stamps and stuff like that. And so that's the environment they raised in. And so that's their norm.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask you, listen to your inner self. You know, those are some of the deepest conversations that you'll ever have. What would you say is one of the toughest conversations that you ever had to have with yourself, you know, about your reality? And what was that conversation?
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I think there's been quite a few of them, actually. I think one of the biggest ones that popped off my mind when you said that is everybody's not for you. And I think that was probably one of the most valuable lessons that I had to learn, because I moved through this life very naive about a lot of things. I tried to partner and do a lot of different things in business with people that, you know, I thought had good intentions and things. And the reality is that now I know you have to spend more time. It's not good enough. Let me back up. It's not good enough for us both to want to be successful monetarily in a business. We need to spend more time to understand, like, what roles do you play versus what I play? What values do I bring to the table that you bring to the table? And this don't even have to be a bad thing, but if I bring a good value and you bring that similar good value and it's the same value, it's not going to work. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Because we're going to be two like-minded people. That means we're not going to progress too much. You see what I'm saying? Just agreeing on something all the time, then you're going to potentially miss things that you guys should have seen because y'all agree so much. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So you got to have a respect there where, hey, I value the role you play in this. You value the role I play in this. I respect what you're saying. You know, not saying we're going to agree all the time, but, you know, I understand why you're doing what you're doing. You understand why I'm doing it, and it's not so money motivated. And I think that that's the biggest thing that for us entrepreneurs, I think that because of YouTube and all the different marketing things we have out here, they're selling a lifestyle marketing that's not healthy. You know what I'm saying? Because it's making potential small business owner thinking, that's it. Like, hey, I want to get the car. I want to do this and this and this, and you're missing the most important part of it, which is the journey itself.
Absolutely. How do you cut into, like, you know, like you say, there's so much information out here. You know, a lot of people on social media showing that they have this or they have that, or like just so much information. Like, how do you weed through? Because you've been in the business for a long time. How do you weed through it and figure out, like, what's real business and then, like, what's not? Like, for the average person that's, like, seeing all this stuff, trying to get to where they want to go, but there's so many distractions out here, and it's kind of hard to tell. Like, is this person really genuine? Do they really have this or not? Like, how do you kind of, like, figure out what's what?
To me, how I do it, and everybody's different, but how I kind of go about it is I like people who don't jump on trends. So it doesn't matter if you have some knowledge or not. I would tend not to patronize you if, let's say, business credit, because I do business credit. All right, over the last couple of years, business credit has become extremely popular. Okay, now you got all these people jumping into the business talking about business credit, and we can do this, we can do funding and all this. But 2 years before that, they was not talking about that at all. They was on something, whatever the hot thing was at that time. You know what I'm saying? So I like to look for people that has a true story of how they got into spaces. Hey, you know, for me as a business coach, how did Julius become a business coach? Because I own so many businesses, it doesn't mean that all of them were successful, because they wasn't, and I'm not going to claim that they were. Actually, what makes me a valid business coach comes from not being successful in some of these things. The lessons that I learned when, you know, I had a business go through a recession, and, you know, at one point I had tax debt, and, you know, all types of different things that happen in business that I would have not known how to coach other people through if I had never been through it myself. And I think that that's what people should seek in people that they want to have as a mentor, coach, whatever you want to call it, is really look for the story. Did this person just pop on the scene, a year ago because this is the thing to do? They're just trying to make some money, or did I see, or can I trace back and see that this person actually has done the things that they're talking about? Me personally, I don't coach on anything that I'm not personally have my hands into. So it doesn't matter if it's Airbnbs, real estate investing, you name it. If I don't personally have my own money in it and my hands in it, I'm not going to coach it.
Right. Now I was going to say, to me, that'll be a red flag to see somebody just showing all the wins and not, telling all of the backstory.
Yep.
Because to me, it's more important, like learning those different type of things from somebody who's had these issues. For me, I can only tell you my personal experience. I can't tell you anything else. So, hearing that means a lot because, I want to know, like, what's the struggles, what's the in and out, what can I prepare myself to go through in certain types of adversity, because everything is not, as an entrepreneur, going to be peaches and cream. You're going to have your good days, you're going to have your bad days.
Yep.
So that's super important to know. For you, while we're still talking about entrepreneurship, do you feel like it's being glorified for all the wrong reasons? Because it seemed like maybe over the past 3 or 4 years, like you said, talking about those trends, you feel like it's being glorified for all the wrong reasons now?
Most definitely, I think so. And I think that that's where the social media marketing, kind of is kind of a gift and a curse, because it's very misleading in a lot of ways. I think that it gives the false sense that everybody is a business owner, and that's factually just not true. And we should dispel that whole notion that everybody should be a business owner, because they're not. And we shouldn't see. Everybody should look for the most value in being the head of something. You know what I'm saying? Because they are very, very influential, successful. When we're talking about monetarily, however you want to look at success, COOs, CFOs, you know what I'm saying? Second and third in line in certain businesses. So I would challenge our people to not just think about owning a business. Think about your own value system, your own skill set, and what value can you bring to a company. And if there's a CEO out here that you could bring value to, then negotiate an equitable state in that business. And that's what a lot of other people have done, and they're just as rich as the CEO themselves.
Like you said, it's not always easy. It's not peaches and cream. For me, I tell people honestly, I feel like to a certain extent I didn't really have a choice but to create my own opportunity, because graduating, like my internships, I had the opportunity to cover a lot of professional sports, to cover the Panthers and NASCAR, a lot high school football, and for me graduating, I thought I was going to be able to get one of those jobs at ESPN or Fox, and graduating, I don't think I heard was you lack experience, you don't. This is constantly what I kept hearing, so it kind of made me feel bad for a second, like, man, am I not good enough for these opportunities? But, it forced me, get to the drawing board, figure different things out. I started interviewing locally, like local entrepreneurs, and then I just expanded and started traveling across the country, interviewing entrepreneurs. Now, back with the Hornets again, covering the Hornets. But for me, I tell people, it's one of those, and I wrote a book, which came out going on 2 years ago. Now, It's like, I almost felt like I didn't have a choice but to create my own opportunity.
Yep.
But now for me, looking back on it, it's one of the best things for me, because, I almost to a certain extent felt like I was seeking validation from one of those major corporations.
Yeah.
But, going through it on my own, it just showed me like I didn't need that validation from anybody else but myself. But, I say it's not easy, but, the journey of entrepreneurship, like if you have it in you, like it's well worth it.
Most definitely. And another thing I would like to kind of dispel is just don't quit your job to just jump into a business, and the business is not cash flowing and it's not perfectly, it's not set up the right way. And that's another kind of thing that's being put out here is just people that's jumping out here, I've had people say to me like, hey, I did not leave the plant job that I was working at, working 12 hours a shift to go work 20 hours for my business. So they have the opposite mindset of what to have. You know, if I could create 30 hours in a day, I would work them. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And because it has nothing to do with, the amount of time, is what you're working for. You see what I'm saying? You're working on something that is yours. Nobody can take that away from you. So put as much time into it, and then you're going to be able to monetize on it bigger than ESPN or anybody could ever pay you.
And that's one of the best feelings for me. It's crazy because I was saying, those same corporations that, didn't give me opportunity. I'm still in the same building with these same people. So it's, like I said, it's a blessing. It's been a lot that I had to learn from that experience. But, talking about, not quitting your job. And we spoke about this, at the panel, on the panel. And I had Miss Brittany and Miss Brandy, they were on recently, share their voices on it. I want you to talk about it as well, since you had the floor to yourself. Talk about not just quitting your job. When do you know when it's time to jump?
That's going to be different for most people, but I will give a framework around it. Quit when you don't have time to go to the job. Okay? Mm-hmm. And what that means is that you've worked your business to a point where you don't have time to go to the job because you got business to tend to that's making you money, if not more money, the same money, as going to the job. But when you're first starting off, you're going to have this roller coaster ride. You may have a season where sales are up and everything's great, and you're like, man, I think it's time to leave the job. And then you hit a low where you ain't got no sales. Okay, and so what I did personally, man, I had plenty of jobs before I finally got to a point where I didn't need it anymore. Me personally, and I'm not going to advise people to do this, but I'm just going to tell you my real story. Mm-hmm. This is a strategy for people. When you know that entrepreneurship is in you, okay, play chess, not checkers. And so what I mean by that is that build your resume up first. Okay, go and get the top jobs, excel at those jobs. Even in your mind, this is not about to be a life career for you. You know what I'm saying? Build that resume up. Once that resume is built up, then you're golden, because to the end of time, there are always going to be people looking to hire somebody for a job. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you got a resume that's tight, then you could always get a job. You know what I'm saying? Yep. And so what I did was I used to have, these big corporate jobs and all this stuff. So my resume tight, man, I can go get a 6-figure job in, anywhere. Okay. Well, with that being said, when at the time was a catering business, that was the first business that I had that I started to do what I'm about to tell you about. When the catering was doing really, really good, I didn't have time to go to the job. So I quit the job. You know what I'm saying? And then, because I just didn't have time. So, but then there was a period of time when, that season of catering was over with, and now I ain't got no catering jobs. Oh, crap, I got bills to pay. So I went and got another job. Mm-hmm. Worked that job. Man, all of a sudden, hey, I got this big catering event. Catering started picking up again. Quit again. Not the same job, but different jobs. You know what I'm saying? I would quit again. I kept doing that until I finally was up in the air enough that I didn't have to go back to a job. And so that's what happened for me. Other people, you can stay on the job until you complete it off, or kind of do whatever. But I don't want people to get the notion that to just jump out here and struggle, you know what I'm saying, to get a business when you got a family to take care of, house to take care of, you got real responsibility. Mm-hmm. That's going to put you in a situation that you're going to be depressed. You're not going to be in a mental state to really grow anything. So keep the job. You need the job, but just be smart about the money from the job. Mm-hmm. If you know that you make $1,000 and you got $250 left over every week after you pay your bills, don't go buy them Jordans. Go invest that in your business. Take that $250 and say, all right, another microphone I can get. Whatever the case may be. Invest in yourself. Keep investing in yourself until it starts to pay off.
Talk a little bit about, ego, and because you had to swallow your pride a couple of times, and just say, hey, I got a job, I'm making great money in my job, and I got a business that's really taking off. And then, like you said, so you quit the job, and then you had that season where your business started slowing up, so you had to go get another job. Talk a little bit about how that was, kind of like putting your ego to the side, and being humble enough to go back and get another job. Because a lot of people, once they feel like they're an entrepreneur, they quit the job and they're entrepreneurs, like it's no turning back, because for one part they worry about what people gonna say about it, but at the same time, it's okay, man. You got to do what you got to do to keep a roof over your head and take care of your family. Talk a little bit about not having that ego and being able to and going back to get another job.
Man, I think that's probably I think that may be the defining thing about me is not having one. Because in these moments, man, I had a restaurant that was doing $2 million a year in sales. Recession hit, had to close it down, and directly after that restaurant closed down, I went and became a cook at a steakhouse. You see what I'm saying? In the same city with the people who knew I had the restaurant. You know what I'm saying? At that time, I didn't even want to. And people, they wanted me to be the manager and all of no. I just want to come in, do this job, cook, and go home. You know what I'm saying? I didn't even want the pressure. So I think part of me just didn't really care. You know what I'm saying? Because I knew where I was going, and I had already had accomplished things. I had already eclipsed a lot of my people that I kind of grew up with. So I kind of had this thing as like, yeah, even if I never got back here, at least I've done things that other people can't say they've done, or at least I've tried something that other people would not even attempt to try. So those type of things.
And I always tell people there's nothing wrong with having a job, because, like you said, it pays the bills. Like I tell people now, I still have my job, and I'm thankful for it. It's getting more and more difficult for me, to be at work and travel, shoot interviews, cover the Hornet. So it's getting a lot more difficult. Plus having a family, but like I say, you still have to keep a roof over your head, take care of your family, and be able to provide. But like I said, that job is still it's a necessity for a lot of people in those different moments. For you, how would you say is like talking about purpose? Like how did you necessarily find your purpose? Was it working your business, or was it something like in your job that made you feel like it's not for me and I need to leave and go find my purpose? Like how did you feel like you when you really found your purpose?
I didn't find my purpose until I hit rock bottom. There were things or signs along the way that was telling me that this not for you, and so I always knew that, like from the beginning, I always knew entrepreneurship was my thing. Like I said, as a kid, you asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. I knew I wanted to be a mogul. So I knew I wanted to do these things, but when it really hit me is when I lost the restaurant. Got in the recession. The restaurant was super successful, had won all these awards. Felt like the rug got pulled up under me. I was right downtown, and it's almost like center stage. You know what I'm saying? Like all this pressure. Rug got pulled out from under me. Restaurant had to close. Had to deal with a lot of financial things with the restaurant closing. And in that moment, literally, when I had nothing else to give to it, what I'm saying? Literally, I had nothing. Like I have poured everything into it. It's almost like when I let go and let God. That was probably the best way to describe that. You know what I'm saying? I stopped doing or trying to do it my way, and was like, man, whatever you want to do with me, it kind of is what it is. But then I asked him for something. I asked him for clarity. You know what I'm saying? Hey, if you could just show me where I was going wrong at, maybe I was missing something or whatever, if you just show me what it is, I'll spend the rest of my life impacting in that area, and then literally, it wasn't like overnight or anything, but like, probably within the next year, it just kind of came upon me that I should be a business coach. And then in that moment, it made literally everything before that moment all makes sense. Because, when that restaurant closed, I was questioning God, man. I was like, God, if you're real, why would you have me create something like this, create these sales? And I was only like 25 years old when I was running, owning this $2 million restaurant. So I'm like, God, like, why would you put me in this type of situation? I'm from this little town. Like, why would these things be what they were for me to lose them if you real? So, I was questioning him a lot, between me and him. And but as soon as that came over me, it literally made all the sense. Like, Julius, you couldn't be just a book knowledge, a coach. You couldn't be, a fad coach, a trendy coach. You know what I'm saying? You had to be one that when people hear you talk, they know it came from real places. And that's how I got here.
Did you feel like you ever had a moment where you kind of like had to step back and check yourself? Like you're saying, you're young, 25, you're running a $2 million business. Did you ever feel like you had a moment where you had to kind of like step back and check yourself? Because, people in that position at that age, that's a lot of money, to be running a successful business. Was there anything, or were you still, maintaining your humbleness, running that type of business?
It wasn't. I was a kid still. I was 24, 25. And so God has a funny way of, if you don't check yourself, he'll check you. Mm-hmm. And I think that what happened to me is during that time, I lived a very local / celebrity type of a life, you know what I'm saying, where, I drove, Mercedes coupe, you know what I'm saying, I threw parties at my restaurant a lot, me and my friends rode around in limos, you know what I'm saying, we just, so I kind of got caught up in that piece of it, and God checked me, and he checked me in a way where what happened was I was really tired one day, and my mom came in because she was helping me run the restaurant, and she seen how tired I was, and she was like, "Why don't you just go on home?" And and that day was payday or something, and she had gave me my payroll check, and I was like, all right, I'll go home or whatever. She said, I'll take care of it for the rest of the evening. And before I went home, I said, let me stop at a bank to go to the teller or whatever to deposit a check, and then I don't have to worry. One less thing I have to worry about. Going through the drive-through, I was on the phone having a heated conversation with somebody over my daughter, and totally distracted, bro, like totally distracted. Sent the tube up the thing for her to send me a deposit slip back. The tube comes back down. I took the tube, put it over here my thing, still talking on the phone, because I'm going to fill out the thing. Got so caught up in the conversation, totally forgot about it. Just pulled off. Goes down the street probably like 2 miles, police lights come on. I'm thinking it was because I didn't have my seatbelt on or something like that. And just to fast forward the story, it is a crime to pull off with that tube.
Oh, man.
And so, not necessarily a crime that I got hit with, but what I said it checked me was how they handled me in that situation. Really pulled me all the way back, because they took a situation because I was this young, at this time, I'm kind of like this little local celebrity. Mm-hmm. When the police officer sees me initially, he's like, "Oh, you're not my suspect." Goes back to the car. I'm like, "Suspect? What is he talking about?" And then when he comes back, that's when he starts to tell me about what's going on. Well, the newspaper catches it and they flies off with it. Front page paper, or a local business owner, stole from the bank or something like that. Oh, you know what I'm saying? So if I stole how can I steal from the bank? I'm in the drive-through. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So, but nobody cares about this. They care about what's selling papers.
Exactly.
And so in that moment right there, and how the media, kind of how that situation was handled, it really showed me that people are only in it for what they can get out of it. Mm-hmm. And so what I mean by that is that they put a lot of energy in putting that story out. But then when the actual time to come for the court piece of it, the real, behind it, it gets dropped. Literally, it was me and the teller in the court, and the judge says, "Teller, have you ever seen this guy before?" And she said, "No, I've never seen him before." And he was like, "Do you know her?" And I was like, "No, I've never seen her before." He was like, "Dismissed." Because unless y'all was two in cahoots together, that's the only how this is, what I'm saying? Exactly. You know what I'm saying? But then I realized, okay, well, the media did not come back with the same energy to cover, hey, wait a minute, you know what I'm saying? This was not what it was, you know what I'm saying?
Looking for the adversity.
Yes. All they want to do, they want to sell paper. So then once I seen that dynamic kind of play out, I kind of peel way back.
And, stepping back from things, being humble, doing all these things from your friends, as you started navigating through life and figuring things out, did you find yourself having to separate yourself from certain people, or did you still maintain your same circle? Like what kind of things did you start to separate yourself from, learn from some of your lessons?
I think some of the first things I started to separate myself from was for friends, or what I thought was friends initially. And we was just more like colleagues or just, associates, because the things that, they always call me the mayor, because I've always had that type of a mindset. And so what I started to realize is that none of my friends at the time had that type of mindset, not even similar. A lot of them didn't even have no idea what they wanted to do. They really didn't care. And then so I found myself initially hanging around the popular people, not necessarily the people that actually knew where they were going. And then so once, me hanging with popular people and certain things would happen where you would think that, we should all have each other back and different things like that. It didn't happen. Then it made me start to say, all right, is these my real friends? And then I started to kind of say, all right, well, what would be a real friend? What would consist of a real friendship? And then I started to kind of peel back and started to say, all right, well, a real friend will act like this or be like this. And then as I started to put these expectations on these relationships, then I started to see where some of these people really didn't, they was just opportunists in a lot of ways. And so I had to kind of disassociate myself.
As an entrepreneur, I remember having a conversation a few years ago with Dr. Nika White, talking about entrepreneurship. She's like, you have friends, but at times it's still a lonely journey because nobody can understand the things that you're going through. Some things just only for you. Nobody can see your vision. How do you feel about having those moments, even though you have a family and everything, and come from a family of entrepreneurs as well, about that sense of loneliness? Do you ever feel those moments like that? Anything related to that, as far as being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think and honestly, all the time. And if any real entrepreneur don't say that, then they're not telling you the truth. I do things scared all the time or nervous, but it doesn't stop me from doing it. And I think that's the difference between a successful person and a non-successful person. We both have the same type of feelings, but one person is going to let that stop them from doing something, whereas the other one is not going to hinder them at all. They're going to do it scared. They're going to do it nervous, and those type of things.
Yeah, I always say, man, even days when I'm on the road, if I have to go somewhere by myself or going traveling, covering games, at times I still feel like, man, I'm telling myself I'm doing it for a bigger purpose. It's to help influence and inspire other people. But man, it's some of those days when you're on the road, it gets tough. It's lonely.
Yeah.
Sometimes I had to tell myself, even taking some flights by myself to go do interviews, I'm like, man, am I really doing the right thing? It gets. I have those questions at times, but I understand. The main thing I tell myself, just doing it for a bigger purpose. I understand, your journey is here to, not just for you, it's to help other people.
For sure.
But that's one of those things for me. Is just that's how just coping with that loneliness is just understanding your journey is going to help other people.
The only person that you have to prove something to is yourself. You know what I'm saying? And so if you feel you're doing the right thing and it feels good and you feel like you on purpose, then that's the thing to be doing. And you're going to have to kind of block everything out. Even though I came from a family of entrepreneurs, I'm their wildest dream too. So what that means is that in a lot of ways, even though I can talk to them and they understand a lot of entrepreneurial aspects of things, they still have a certain governor on them. You see what I'm saying? And so I have to take the advice that they give me even still with a grain of salt. Hey, I value what you're saying, but I'm also I've also corrected a lot of the things that y'all have kind of went through, so I kind of understand something maybe a little bit differently. So yes, I value you, but it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to use it in my decision making.
I want to ask you about this quote that you posted this last month, and powerful quote. I actually had to break it down a little bit, just paraphrasing a little bit. It was talking about running a business. You said running a business is hard and it can cause stress and anxiety and drain you to a point of depression. People will talk about you, compare you to others, view you as a service and not as a person. Family and friends will expect discounts. It's a reason you don't see many people succeed in small businesses after 5 to 10 years. Be kind, patient, and hopefully more of us will stick around. Talk a little bit about, that quote of, just people expecting discounts or not viewing you just even as a person. Like, talk a little bit about that as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest hurdle, or the biggest hurdle, and we have to, as entrepreneurs, build tougher skin, because I think that is in the back of our minds. We all, and that's why that post was got the attention that it did, is because that speaks to everybody. If you're an entrepreneur, you have been faced with that in every avenue. But the thing about it is that you have to have discernment. You got to know how to say no, and and that's when you really see who is who, because your true supporters are not going to ask for discounts. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They're going to see, hey, I'm going to actually tip more or give a little more because I know why you're doing what you're doing, and so is for you. What we have to do as entrepreneurs is be able to decipher for what is genuine and what is not, so it doesn't slow down our progress, because we already are fighting mental battles on ourselves. It's like you just said, every time I make a trip or every time I do here, I'm questioning myself, is this the right thing to do? You know what I'm saying? Am I moving in the right direction? So, if you're going to have that battle yourself, then why have that battle with other people? You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, they're not going to play a role, good or bad, in the end result. You know what I'm saying? So it's truly you versus you. And just like Steve Harvey said, he said something that caught my attention. He was like, if you're already going through hell, why would you stop there? Keep going. On the other side of that, and that's the same thing I feel about failure. You know what I'm saying? Or slow season. So if you're doing something, you don't see the fruits of it yet, why stop right there? Why quit? You know what I'm saying? I mean, you already out here. If you already been spending money, you've already made the investment, right? Why stop now? And then once you have done, how long have you had this podcast?
Probably consistently 4 years now.
Yeah, it's too expensive to quit now.
Yeah, way
you see what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. Think about you too far in.
Yeah. And even the mics and equipment that we have, like my friends, and my brother, they all contributed to this. They saw me, because when I started, the only thing I had was a laptop and just one camera, and from there they invested in me. That's when I finally started traveling, doing the self-investment tour. But especially when you see the people that pour into you and
Most
support
definitely.
your dream and your vision. I got my best friend here running the camera behind the scenes. That's another reason, like, man, you came too far to quit, because so many people are pouring into you and investing in you. Like, why would you stop? Like you said, to me, it just means so much more, to show people that my appreciation to them is like, hey, you invested in me, so now I'm want to pour back into you and just show you that everything that you invested in me was worth the investment.
For sure, and that's when you're on purpose. You know what I'm saying? When people take their resources to help you move your project forward, then they see something. You know what I'm saying? They see the value in what you're doing, and they want to encourage you to keep going. And so, that's another thing about guys. Like, when you on purpose and you moving in life, you don't have to have it figured out. You know what I'm saying? So us as a community, we have to stop overthinking. Overthinking is leading to anxiety and stress, which is causing disease and killing us. You know what I'm saying? We need to know or spend enough time with ourselves where we get in purpose, and we walk into that purpose. And if we're walking in the purpose, then God is going to bring every person that we need along that journey. You can be like, oh my God, I was literally just thinking about I needed somebody like this, and here you are. That type of thing.
It's crazy when you said that about how God will send people in your life. I remember, I write on a daily basis of When I start my morning, I was writing everything that I'm thankful for, and then I have another paper that I just write my goals and it's just speaking myself into like manifesting the things that I want in life. And this was two years ago. I just write down a list of places I want to go to for the self-investment tour. So I wrote down California. Read an article. This lady has a mannequin business. I shared this on the podcast before. I read the story about. I read her article. It's called Mannequin Madness. So I reached out to her, sent her an email, and she hit me back probably within 30 minutes. And she was like, "Hey, I love what you're doing." She said, "Have you ever been to the Bay Area?" I said, "No, ma'am." She said, "I tell you what, if you want to come out here, don't worry about paying stay in my Airbnb." She said, "The only thing you have to do is pay a cleanup fee." So for a whole entire weekend in Oakland, California, we paid, I think I paid like $145 for an entire weekend. Like I was like, I didn't know how I was gonna get out here. I just reached out to this lady, like you said, like when you want something and you have a purpose, like God will make a way for you to get there.
Every time.
I was just like, man, I don't know how I'm gonna get out here. And even to this day, it's crazy. She just reached out to me the early part of this year, at the beginning of this year, and just like, she was asking me, because she's really been pushing for me, to relocate. She even one time, she was like, hey, if you serious about what you want to do, you should come out here to California and I'll help you, get on your feet out here.
Yeah.
And I've been telling her, that's one of my biggest battles. I've been, talking to myself and having that intuition and listening to myself is, figuring out, do I really want to leave or do I want to stay home?
Mm-hmm.
Part of me wants to leave to like relocate to a bigger market, but then to me, I was telling Brittany, I want to stay home and build something for the people. Almost to the point where like in a sports comparisons, like when LeBron left and he came back home and brought the championship back home to Cleveland. Yeah. To me, it would feel much more purposeful.
Most definitely.
If I stayed home and built something for the people, as opposed to relocate, which I understand at times you do need to, to leave, but I want to be home. But, just tying that back in, like when you want something and you're moving in purpose, God is still going to figure out a way for you to have that in life.
Well, that's what I did. I mean, I have so many opportunities to be in bigger markets, but same thing that you're talking about. I wanted to create something here for our people to have something of substance, of magnitude. Mm-hmm. So no, I totally get that. And the thing about it is that what you're doing is delaying your blessing for a bigger payday. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So what I mean by that is that like me and you could go to LA right now and do extremely well. Probably make more money doing this in LA than you're doing it right now. Okay? Mm-hmm. But the reality is that money's gonna come quick. What you building here will be what will last, almost like a legacy building type of a thing. You see what I'm saying? A legacy platform where now when you get paid from your local market, it's a longer payday, because what has happened is now these people from these other markets have not came here and they're looking for the podcast shows. They're looking for the same things that they had when they was in New York. Mm-hmm. They come down here and they looking for that, then they meet you. Yep. You see what I'm saying? Yep. And so my thing is that that's kind of how I am as well. That's why everything is kind of still based out of Spartanburg. I have clients all over this country, but it was very intentional for me to be headquartered in the hometown that I was born and raised in.
And for me, just that relatability. I want people to be able to see somebody that looks like them from the same places. I was sat in these same classrooms, went to the same schools and everything. Somebody that looks like them, to be from this area, has built something for them, like showing them that if I can do it, that you can do the same thing that I'm doing. There's nothing special about me. I'm not the smartest, not the most athletic, anything. So if I had the opportunity, like I tell people, like I started everything that I'm doing with a laptop. Mm-hmm. So if I can start from a laptop, take that and branch out across the country, cover professional sports, sit in front of the greatest athletes in the world. If I can do it, then you can do it. So that's why it's so important for me. And I want you to speak about that relatability factor as well. Like, how important is it for you to, to see people, that somebody that's from their hometown, they can just reach out and touch you and just like, he did it, I can do it. How important is that, like, relatability factor
Yeah,
for you?
it's everything, and it's the reason why, like I said, I've taken a lot less money to stay here. Because that is very important for me. Because growing up, and this kind of circles back to the beginning part of our interview. I realized the upbringing that I received was not what most people would receive. Most people are not born into a whole family of entrepreneurs. So my thing is being able to create businesses, create image where I'm still very relatable. You can still come up to my office. You can still touch me. You'll still see me out in the community. Still see my family out, because now that gives a different perception of what success could be. In our community here, to have, super success, or to be a multimillionaire, or drive a Lamborghini, or whatever people are looking at, you have to be a professional football player, drug dealer, or something like that coming from our community. But when you see me have these things, and you ask me, hey, what do you do? And I say, I'm a business coach. Business coach? Business coach can do that? Most definitely. Oh, I own my own podcast. Oh, wow. You could do that? Yeah. Come here. I actually would show you. You know what I'm saying? So I think it got to be deeper than just us having a present, just being still here. We got to be open to giving back knowledge. And I see a lot of people that get to a certain place, then they start to hoard it. You know what I'm saying? Instead of saying, all right, well, you like that car? Let me teach you how to get one like me.
I think
that type of thing.
To me, it's the worst feeling is when it's our own people that make it to a certain level, and then it's like they almost turn their back, or they don't want to show us and bring somebody else.
Yeah.
To me, that's more hurtful than as a racist, somebody who doesn't want to do it because they don't like the color of our skin. When it's our own people, and then they don't want to help us or show us the way, and because then you're just keeping our people. We already had a 400 year. We didn't have a 400-year head start, so we're still trying to catch up.
Yeah.
So for our people, we need to, inspire other people, and like you said, it's important for us, to show people the way, and not, like you said, hoard all the information.
Yep. So that's, like I said, that's literally why, how I got here in the space of business coaching, and why I'm so passionate about doing it is because it's not my thing to have the success, the materialistic things of success, without showing our people how to get it. Because I've always believed if you don't show people how to get it, then you become a target. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so, hey, you can't be the only one driving a Lamborghini. You know what I'm saying? You gotta be 2-3 other people around that got one too. So you gotta help put other people in position, just so they're not targeting you.
I think it was this quote that I heard from. I was watching Denzel. He did an interview sometime last year, and he said, "You never see." Speaking about like hoarding information and everything, he said, "You never see a U-Haul behind a hearse. You can't carry that information with you."
Yep.
So even for me, getting back into covering the Hornets, one of my things is, as far as my business, I want to build it to where I want to be able to let other people go cover these events who are up and coming journalists, because eventually for me, as I continue to get older, like. I want younger people in journalism field to be able to go
Most
cover
definitely.
these, because I know how I felt, reaching out, trying to get these opportunities, and the door was shut in your face. So for me, I want to be able to, open that door and say, hey, if you want to go, now here's your opportunity. You take advantage of this opportunity, because I know how it was. And plus, you don't see a lot of us working in the media as well.
No.
So it's like we don't get to put our stories out. It's a different narrative. When other journalists are telling stories about African American men, like even when you see it all the time with sports, it's like painting a certain narrative of some athletes coming from broken homes and all that type of stuff. So for me, it's important for people of color, more people of color, to get in that field. So I want to be another avenue for other people. Hey, if you want to go, here's your opportunity. Take advantage of that opportunity.
Most definitely. And so when you think about your purpose of your life, when you say, hey, I wanted to go to ESPN, but, I felt like I was forced to do this. Yeah, God just maybe have realigned you so you can make a bigger impact. Maybe at ESPN you would have got a nice check, but not make the impact that you're able to make across the line.
Absolutely. And then, some people, it's hard, like people would take, even Oprah was saying in that interview, she's like, hey, you work for a great company, you stay there, you get to one of those ESPNs or Fox, it's like you think that's the cream of the crop, and you think that's it. So people will tell you, hey, you here, you at the top, stay here.
Yep.
Even if you don't even feel fulfilled at those jobs, some people will stay there because
Yep.
they don't think it's anything else.
Yes, I do.
It's a blessing for me as well, is because now it's like I didn't want my whole entire existence to be tied up into another corporation.
There you go.
And they can pull that rug out from under you at any given time.
There you go.
So like I said, I'm on my own. It's a lot harder for me. I don't get the same access to certain privileges as those other companies, but like I said, I'm still in the building.
Yeah,
And
still look to network. You know what I'm saying? With those people, get to know them. Make sure that they know your brand, your show,
Absolutely.
know you, and those things. And there may be opportunities for you to still work with ESPN, but not have to give up intellectual property or anything with your show. You know what I'm saying? To me, getting a job then is a lot different because now you have your own identity. You know what I'm saying? They can't take this away from you. You know, so you go over there and hey, you know, you don't believe in, you know, how they want you to do things. You can just easily say, you know what, I kind of go back over here. I'm cool.
And I love the fact that I'm still, you know, connected to the people.
Yeah.
Like I'm still accessible. Yes, I can go over here and cross over and, you know, cover professional sports, be on the corporate side, but still I can still come home and, you know, interview with local entrepreneurs and not feel like I'm out of touch with the people.
Yep.
That's one thing. I never want to feel like people can't get to me. No, not saying that everybody's worth your time, but still to a certain extent, you know, if people want some information on how to do this or how to do that, they still can, it's like an open door. You can still reach out to me.
Yeah, for sure.
Got a few more questions and we'll get ready to wrap it up. How do you keep, you know, being an entrepreneur is tough. So how do you keep, you know, your business from tying and affecting like your personal life?
Being very organized. You know, my calendar on my phone, I literally live and die by it. You know what I'm saying? And so I literally schedule everything. I schedule sleep. I schedule, you know, family things, you know, taking my kids to school, you know, their activities or whatever. And so my kids know that, hey, if you got some activities or whatever, hey, Dad, pull out your phone. Need you to put it on the calendar. You know what I'm saying? So they know that's kind of how, you know, my life has operated, and that's how I'm able to kind of be very systematic and methodical about my approach. So yeah, I would definitely encourage anyone. It doesn't matter if you got one business, and I have 5. So, you know what I'm saying, and a family. You know what I'm saying. So with having any type of business, you got to really learn how to be self-disciplined and very, very organized. You know, and then everybody's going to have their strategy for organizing. Initially, mine wasn't even doing my phone. I was still old school, and I was doing the planner thing, you know, and I used to literally, you know, carry a planner around with me. And then now I'm literally using my phone and my notes and stuff on my phone. And so everybody has their different thing, but I would definitely say organization is the key to anything.
Running 5 businesses, how did you know when it was time to, you know, jump from one business, you were ready to go from one business to the next? Because you're running 5, so I know they can be kind of tough. So how do you know when it's time to, you know, spend more time on one, and how do you know when it's time to, you know, expand your business?
I think, so let's back up. So when we say 5 businesses, it would not be possible without good teammates. You see what I'm saying? So I'm not a one-man show on any of these situations. Okay. I just play the role that I play. You know what I'm saying? So when you think about any of these businesses, they're only successful because I have other partners that is just as passionate about that one business that we in business together about, and then we kind of all work like that. But kind of how I know to move from one business to another one is initially when I had one business. I had a decision to make, which was when I first started, my first business was Cornbread Consulting Firm, which we still have. It's a restaurant consulting firm. So we totally focus on hospitality, restaurants, nightclubs, you know, those hotels, that type of thing. Well, they started to come to me for things or needing me for things that were outside of the scope of hospitality consulting, but was still connected in the vein of business. Okay, and ultimately what they was coming to me for or was asking me about was capital and funding. credit, and all these different things. Okay, and what I am very intentional about not being is a jack of all trades. Okay, and so what I didn't want to do is I didn't want one company to say, man, we do everything. You know what I'm saying? Nah, you don't do everything. And if you do put yourself out there like that, then you're probably going to not have a lot of business. And so when so many people started to come to me about this credit piece, I mean, which is understandable, you know what I'm saying? Our community has been locked out of a lot of financial resources. You know what I'm saying? So it was very understandable. I didn't want the consulting company to be now saying that we're helping with operations and we're helping with finances and stuff like that.
Right.
And so what we did was create a sister company to it.
Okay.
And so that's where the second business come from, because it was a sister company to the first one. That all this company would focus on is just financial things. You know, help them personal credit repair, business credit, business funding, those type of things. You know, and if anything, those two companies would pretty much work together. Okay, that's how two started. Then the other one started because now I'm in business credit. Now me myself personally have a bunch of business credit. So what am I going to do with the business credit? Well, what is everybody else doing with the business credit? They're doing investing. You know what I'm saying? They're getting Airbnbs. You know, they're touring cars and all this stuff. So that's how I got into that space. So I didn't want that to be a part of this business. So two other partners came with me and we created another business that solely did real estate investing. Okay, and so that's kind of where that third one comes from. The fourth one comes from is we have a Black Chamber of Commerce. You know what I'm saying? And so now we're thinking about, all right, well, we have all these businesses, but then is there a business or is there an organization out here that lobbies or speaks on the behalf of Black business owners? You know what I'm saying? So when you're talking about, these federal dollars, local money, you know what I'm saying, that's supposed to make it to the Black community, that some kind of way never makes it to the Black community, that's because they don't respect us as business people. They don't believe we have a big Black business community. You know what I'm saying? And so we needed a representation for that say, hey, no, you're not going to mismanage these funds. These are a group of professional Black business owners and Black professionals that know the lingo, know what they need to know, and you're not going to bamboozle us. You see what I'm saying? And then we turn around and communicate back to the community. Hey, this is what's happening. This is what's going on. This is what they just said, and this is what this really means. That whole type of thing. And then the fifth one came from just who I am. So I've always been a person that if I do it, then I'm going to think, my mind is wired in a way to think about how to make it a business. Right. And so this fifth one is a travel company, but I'm not a travel agent. Even though I have credentials of being a travel agent, I don't book travel for people. So our fifth company is Black Hollywood Travel, which is a destination Black travel group. Okay, and so the mindset of what we've been talking about is like, hey, there's a lot of our community that don't travel. They don't get outside of their four walls. Therefore they don't know a lot of stuff, you know what I'm saying, because they're not cultured, and so that's by design. We created this group that would go to these exotic places all around the world and experience their culture. So last year we went to Dubai, stayed there for like a week and a half. Great experience. And next month we're going to Thailand, and so that's a whole different experience. You know what I'm saying? It's like every year we're going to different parts of the the world, to just absorb their culture. And then, like I said, it really opens your mind, and you really have you kind of thinking about, all right, well, how can I make my home better? Now that I've seen this, now that I know that this is possible. Just like Dubai. Dubai was like the biggest mind-opening thing for all of us who had went, because we were able to see how successful they are in a short amount of time. Like Dubai itself was built from sand in 50 years. Like that was not even there. You know what I'm saying? And so if you can build a whole city of that magnitude in 50 years, then you start to question, why does change happen so slow in America? You see what I'm saying?
That's true.
Why is black people still fighting for the same things that they was fighting for when Martin Luther King was marching? You see what I'm saying? So that's when your brain starts to like wait a minute. You know what I'm saying? It shouldn't take like somebody playing games here. You see what I'm saying? That's where the realness kind of come in, because you see something. If you never was over there, you'll never have that viewpoint.
And that exposure, like
yes,
sir. So important, man. That's why I love doing this, because you it's a chance for everybody to get this type of information, and then figure out what they want to do, and also a chance for them, like if you want to step out of their comfort zone and travel and see the world. Like you said, that's an eye opener. I've never been to Dubai. Matter of fact, I need to get a passport because I want to travel the country. I think one of the places that I want to go to, that I've heard great things about, is Africa. It was always this negative perception. Like you see it on TV and you see those commercials about the kids starving. So in my mind, when I was younger, it was like, man, I don't never want to go to Africa just because that's what I saw. But then the stories that I've heard about, going out there, it's like you get in tune with your people. You say
it's just not true. You know what I'm saying? It does. Are there villages, in the whole continent of Africa that's like that? Yes, but that's no different than some of the hoods that we can show you in America.
Yeah.
You see, I'm just being honest. And so the reality is that Africa is the richest continent in this whole world.
Yep.
And so when you go over there, you go to South Africa and you go to these places, you be like, holy crap. Like it looks a lot like America, but better, because all these people look just like you.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And you'll get an immediate sense of relief. That's how I felt when I went to Jamaica. You know what I'm saying? Like when everybody looks like you. That's how I feel about like black communities like Atlanta, Baltimore, places like that where the majority of people look like you. You instantly get like this sense of relief for some reason. Like, okay, cool. You know what I'm saying? And that's how Africa really is. You know what I'm saying? It's not. That's a fear-baiting thing in itself that they showed us on TV to keep you from wanting to say, hey, let me go to Africa and see what's going on. And so, and they don't want you to travel because a passport is really an international business license. So when you're able to go to different countries, you can go over there and do business. So when you're talking about doing podcasts, go do podcasts in South Africa. You know what I'm saying?
That's powerful information right there.
Yeah, that's what that passport is for. You know what I'm saying? You're able to go anywhere in the world, and then now you engage, with these people, and you're able to see the world for yourself.
Last year, my brother's in-laws came up here, and they went to Africa. And this is what really sold me on it for really. They would walk. I think they were in Ghana, I believe, maybe. And he said they were walking around, the people from Africa were walking around with it. He said one of the guys came up to him and gave him a hug and said, my family, I'm so glad you finally came back home. So when he told me that, I was like, dang, man, it's like, and he was like, the stuff that you see over there, man, he's like, it's totally different. Like,
they'll have you thinking that Africans over there despise African Americans. You see what I'm saying? They'll tell you all these different things is just not true to keep you from finding out what's really real. And so that's why I would challenge anybody to just chart your own course. If we're wrapping those podcasts up, that's my mindset, or those will be some of my last takeaways, is to really chart your own course. Take the risk that you need to take while you're young and do it. That was my mindset. Like, hey, man, I'm going to try all the risks that I can because what I see in people 50, 60 years old is a whole bunch of medications and different things like that. And that's not the life that I wanted for myself. I didn't want Social Security, paying me my retirement because I knew that by the time we old enough to get Social Security, they're not going to have Social Security. That money has already been mismanaged. So we, at our age, have to really think about how to build generational wealth for our family. And that's by retaining equitable states in the things that we are creative in.
I got a couple more business questions.
Let's do it.
When you being in business, how important is it to keep like your personal feelings away from like making tough business decisions? Because sometimes people may not like somebody and don't want to do business with, even if it will be beneficial for them. Some people, it may be. And vice versa.
Yeah.
Or even though, like I said, back to the sports again, like even some journalists, when it comes to, validating, giving somebody an MVP vote or voting them in for the Hall of Fame, because they don't like the person personally, they keep that, from getting in the way of this person getting their recognition. So how important is it for you, like, keeping, like, personal feelings outside of making those business decisions?
I really think it's everything. You have to be able to separate the two. Because, and I say this a lot as it relates to business, there's no emotions in business. So if you bring emotion in it, 9 times out of 10, you're going to make the wrong decision. Okay, so you have to remove your emotion from it. You got to remove how you view that. And if you cannot do that initially, then you shouldn't respond until you kind of have processed things, and that's okay. People do not need to feel an urge or a need to respond to something as soon as somebody says something. If they say something and you don't, your response is not one in which just sit with it. Hey, it's easy to tell somebody, hey, that was a great question, or, that was a great, idea. If you don't mind, I'd like to think on it a little while, and I would love to kind of circle back and kind of pick the conversation back up. And that kind of keeps you in control, because when you're not in control, or when you're letting your emotions kind of lead the way, you're not in control. And you're going to say some things that are not going to be in your best interest.
I want you to just touch on those just a little bit. And I seen you talk about post this as well, the importance of, like, business credit and not using, like, your personal money. Like, talk a little bit about the differences, like, not having to intertwine and, like, the business credit and not using your personal money.
Yeah, for sure. So let me at least give an idea, a foundational idea, which is that to really define what being a success or being rich in America is. It is, as an owner, to own nothing but to control everything. Okay? Own nothing, control everything. So what that means is, personally, you do not want anything in your name as a business owner. Reason being is because that's a liability. You know what I'm saying? Somebody could slip in your driveway and then sue you, and then everything that you have as assets is not fair game. Okay, so own nothing but control everything, by meaning that the companies in which you owns all the assets. You're the CEO of the company, and so you have access to control these things, and you're able to drive the cars, live in the house, whatever the case may be. And so that's kind of how you want it set up. So to have that idea as a foundational idea, we need to now say, all right, well, there's business credit and personal credit. If I need nothing in my personal name, everything needs to be in my business name. That's the same idea with personal credit versus business credit. The idea behind personal credit needs to always be debt-free. Okay? You do not want to carry debt on personal, because once you get over that 30-35% utilization, it's going to start to negatively impact your credit score, and it's going to hurt your lendability. Okay? Now, so the mindset of that is to always be debt-free. Now, when you're thinking about business credit and business funding, your mind has to shift, because business is not about being debt-free. There's no successful business out here that's debt-free.
I would always hear Robert Kiyosaki say something about, sorry to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
He would always say stuff about he loves debt for
Most
some
definitely.
reason, because it helps him, get these different assets and everything. So,
and that's what I'm getting into. And so how business works is it's about not being debt free, but your ability to manage debt. Okay, and so what happens is that the more debt that you can show lending institutions that your business can manage, the more money you're going to get. So I'm going to give you an example. So let's say if I wanted to flip houses, and a lending institution gave me $1 million to go flip houses. Okay, now they gave me the $1 million. I just bought my first house. In the process of flipping, I probably made about 4 or 5 payments on this $1 million on time. Do you know what's about to happen? The banker is going to call me and offer me some more money, possibly another $1 million. And so in your mind, you'll be thinking, man, I just got this loan, just really started to paying it, and I haven't even put a dent in this $1 million loan. Why would they be calling me and asking me to give me another $1 million? That's because you have shown that you can manage the debt of the $1 million. Because whatever the monthly payment is, you have not missed a payment. So when you're thinking about business credit, that's the key to growing business credit, is to never miss a payment. Never missing a payment is showing the ability to manage debt. If you can show that, the more they'll give you, the more they give you. They give you more, you show them that you can manage debt, they'll give you more than that. And so a lot of my colleagues now, in kind of where I'm at in this season of my life, they brag about how much debt that they're managing. Ha ha ha! We're managing $10 million in debt. Da, 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 you know. But if you know the game, that's good. You know what I'm saying? So that means that you have access to $10 million to be able to create cash flowing opportunities. And then because it's a loan, it's tax free. And so that's what Kiyosaki talk about. You know what I'm saying? So the interest payments and all the stuff that you're talking about on a loan payment is tax free versus it being your own money.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because with a person like people hear like a $5,000 loan, you just instantly think you just want to pay that off and get it over with. But on the business side, it's like you saying, it's kind of good to have that debt to show that you can manage those type of payments, and then you get more.
Well, it goes back to what you were talking about earlier about the 400 years in wealth gap. You know what I'm saying? And so you got to ask. I always ask myself the tough questions like why or how. How did they get 400 years in front of us financially? Okay, and a lot of it has to do with what the messaging to our community has been about. They had us fearing the very thing that helps you get rich. Our community fears debt. We fear money. You know what I'm saying? We have a
don't
negative,
even like to have those conversations.
We don't even like to talk about it. That's how much we don't like money. That we don't even talk about it. Our community does not talk about money. So it makes very much sense of why we don't, as a community, we don't have it. That's literally all they talk about.
Yep.
All they talk about. They held up in a room, they watching the football game, and in that football game, they're going to talk about some business opportunities that they have that maybe somebody else in the room can get a part of, or just sharing ideas.
I have a coworker. He said one of his friends, one of his best friends, is like just talking about his grandfather had a suite up in Times Square that he was sold because he was getting old and he couldn't maintain it anymore, and just different stuff like that. A lot of the people that don't look like us. They always say, they got family that's going to pass down property or different things like that down to them that, like, when they finish school or anything, it's going to be theirs. So, like, for our community, it's like, man, we don't really have that luxury all the time of, having stuff passed down to us or inheriting money or whatever it is. It's like, for us, it's like the flip side of it. Like you said, it's just like, being at a disadvantage. But like I said, we still need to have those conversations and be educated on it. Like, so if we are in those positions, we know how to handle it.
Yes. You just got to really identify if this is what I want for my life. So as you start to get old enough to make decisions for yourself and you start to look at your surroundings, is this what I want? If this is what I want, then don't do nothing different, because that's exactly what's going to happen, But if you look at your situation and you really want things to be different, then you're going to have to start surrounding yourself with people who had different circumstances than you. And that's something else I think is a very key to, my growth is, even as high school, and I go back to that part, is like some of my friends that I wind up gravitating to were of another color, but parents were entrepreneurs. So I had one friend of mine, a white guy, his dad owned a construction company, and here we are in high school, he married a lady and went on a honeymoon for a whole month and left us at the house with the housekeeper for the whole month. You know what I'm saying? Now we, like in 11th grade, got this whole mansion to ourselves, and with a lady here who would cook us anything we asked her to cook and everything. He literally in Europe, backpacking Europe for a whole month. You know what I'm saying? So even though I came from an entrepreneurial background, that part was not my lifestyle. You see what I'm saying? And so I wasn't in the hood, but I wasn't living like this. You see what I'm saying? But being able to be exposed to that, as if it was mine, it kind of helped open up my mind as well. His dad was very nice. He let me drive his Mercedes to prom, and he treated me like a son. You see what I'm saying? I think I was very fortunate to have something like that, because he could have easily told his son not to hang with African. I mean, there's so many
Right.
different things or variables that could have happened that I'm glad didn't happen. That allowed me to, kind of see what it felt like. You know what I'm saying, to live in that nice house because I was hanging out with it. My mom let me do it, so it was kind of cool that it was that was the experience that I got, and that helped me as well shape my mindset.
I want to piggyback off that real quick. Was that important for you to, not coming from like that background, like your friend, but to still, maintain relatability because, like I said, people of color don't have that luxury. Was it still important for you to, get that type of exposure, but still, hang with people of color, and even to this day, like a lot of us was. There's a lot of black successful entrepreneurs, but even now, still trying to get in that room with people that don't look like us. Is it still important for you to, when you step in those rooms, do you still maintain your relatability to, people of color?
Yeah, I think that I'm at a place now in my career where I've built my own table. So I don't really, I think I got this from Jay-Z, I always show up as myself. You know what I'm saying? So I don't cower. I don't, I am who I am. So if I walk in a room of, or an Asian, no matter who it is, I'm always going to kind of be me. And I think it's very centered, or my center of gravity is my people and our plight. You know what I'm saying? So that's always at the top of my mind. So when I'm in these rooms that our people are not in, I have a sense of wanting to make them proud, but then also wanting to defend at the same time.
These are going to be my final three questions, and we'll wrap it up after this. If you had to lay out a blueprint for business, just any kind of like whatever type of business anyone wants to run, whether it's like a consulting business or, like you said, a restaurant, or they want to get into filming, whatever it is, what kind of blueprint would you lay out for someone that wants to just run a successful business?
Be honest with you, man, I would just start at the beginning and say, become very, very specific about what it is. I think that too often we're vague about things, and I think that comes from seeing somebody else have something that we think that we should want for ourselves. You know what I'm saying? So I think that we need to spend more time with ourselves and understand that you can get rich or successful doing anything. You don't have to jump lanes to go be successful. You see this person being successful doing it. You know what I'm saying? You could be successful in whatever you have in you, but you have to spend time with yourself and get very, very specific with that. Get thoughts out of your mind on paper. And that's another thing that we think that's very cliche, you know what I'm saying, to write down your thoughts. Just like you said, hey, every morning I write, I do my goals and stuff. That is extremely, extremely important. Most people just talk and don't write down. And it doesn't come to life until you put it on paper. Okay? There's accountability to it once you put it on paper. You know what I'm saying? You can write it down. You can go back and look at it. Like you said, hey, I wrote something down 2 years ago. I can go back and look at it and say, hey, did I actually accomplish that? Hey, I wanted to go to California. I actually was able to go to California. I manifested that.
Absolutely.
So once you start to see some things that you put out there and that actually got manifested, now that should give you more and more. Oh my God, if I can manifest that, can I manifest this? Can I do this? Can I do that? And that's when your world literally opens up for you.
Like I said, manifestation and writing your goals down and just visualize. Give you a chance to see like what you want to do, what you want to accomplish. Is like I said, even now I look back like, man, I really did this. Even when I put those flyers together for the tour and I traveled to these different places, I'm like, man, I actually had something to look at and visualize and work towards those goals. But you still got to work towards them. It's one thing to just write it down, but like it's so important to like work towards them, and it's not gonna happen overnight either. You gotta just stay consistent and like work towards your goal.
For sure.
My final two questions are: as an entrepreneur, I know you have a lot on your plate as a father, husband, so many different things that you running multiple businesses. Do you think there's a such thing as balance?
Yes, there is a certain thing as balance, but you have to make sure that things are everybody that's a part of the process understands what role they play and what role you play. I think that when you think about it took me a while to say yes, because balance comes with communication. I think they're on the same line. I think that if you communicate really well with your support system, then balance is possible when you are, like me, a serial entrepreneur. But you have to know what it is. Like with my kids, my kids are they understand what I do, and they know how to approach me with things. You see what I'm saying? And so that's a sacrifice that they have to make. You know what I'm saying? Because maybe their friend's dad don't own any businesses, you know what I'm saying, works a plant job and has every weekend to, to go take them, and show them, whatever. Whereas, sometimes, I'm not as accessible. Doesn't mean I don't care the same. Doesn't mean that we don't go do things, you know what I'm saying? But it's a different upbringing, and it's just like how my upbringing was. It's a different upbringing. Not only am I an entrepreneur, my wife is an entrepreneur, you know what I'm saying? And so our household, that's all they know. Now when they look at their friends, I mean, easily they could probably say, yes, there are some things that their friends are doing that they're not doing, but there's a tremendous amount of value and experience that they're getting that nowhere close with their peers be getting. My kids, three of my kids, one is 16, one is just turned 11, and one is 8. The two oldest are girls, and then the youngest is my son. The two girls, they only own businesses already.
Wow.
And so that's something that, my oldest daughter, she always calling me about different business things, and she's running, successful business things and school pilots and different things like that. And so, at some point when I was working so hard, I questioned my own self, like, man, Julius, should you be spending more time doing this opposed to doing this, and that whole kind of conversation. But I had to always get back to my purpose, why God had me here. And if I was really walking in purpose, then it would impact the people around me in the right ways. And, I would like to think that they have. Like I said, my wife owns a business, my two kids owns one, my son, because he sees his two sisters doing business, he comes to me and like, hey, Dad, I want to do a business. Like create, he says, like, create me a business. I'm like, son, it's not that easy, And so, but think about the things that you really want to do, and if you think about something that you really want to do, then let's talk about it. And if we can monetize that, then we will.
Yeah, balance is one of the hardest things, because I asked that question to Mr. Joe Foster, the founder of Reebok, when we did an interview a couple of years ago. I asked him about balance because when I was reading his book, he was saying for him, it was a point of he was going so much trying to build the brand up that he was just a guy just paying bills. He would be in and out. Family would see him here and there. But they knew who he was, but basically I almost felt like he was just a guy paying bills. So when I asked him about that, he was just like, the best thing to try to do really is try to include your family in your plans. Don't exclude them.
That's what I was talking about. Yeah, include them. That's that's the best way to do it. And not saying that I always have done that. So that's something that, in wanting to be the best version of what I was doing. So I want to be the best version of a business owner, entrepreneur, or a business coach. I want to be the best version of a husband, best version of a father. So when you have those type of aspirations, then you kind of try to figure out the best way. Are you always reflecting on your situation or your current situation and saying, hey, is there a better way that I could do this? So there was a time where literally all I focused on was the business. Even though, I was always doing it for the family, the family wasn't as included like you're talking about. Now, doesn't matter if I'm, closing on a house, flipping a house, or whatever it is, me and my wife are having this dialogue, I'm having a dialogue with the kids, you know what I'm saying? So the kids are, you'd be surprised what these kids know. They are a lot smarter than I think that we give them credit for. And so, yes, it's including everybody in that has helped me, create this fantasy of a balance, because I don't think really balance is just like being it's something that's like being perfect. You know what I'm saying? There's a pursuit to it, You know what I'm saying? But do you ever kind of quite achieve it?
Right.
You know, that's subjective, right? And so I think that's kind of how I look at balance. Balance gonna look different in my household than it looks in yours.
Cause it's like it almost at times feels like guilt because it's some things that I know I want to attend, but then it's when it comes to the business side, like I need to be here and get these things done. So I have my son here with me today. My 2 daughters there with their mother, but it's been times where my daughter, she had a school play, but I've had to go to Charlotte to go cover a game, or my son had a playoff football game last year, and I had to fly out of town to go, travel, shoot some interviews. So they won that game, but luckily I was able to go to the championship game. But it's still understanding. I don't know if they fully understand everything that I'm doing right now. Still, to a certain degree, when they look at me, they just look at dad. They don't, they're young, so. But I want them to understand that, like, don't settle for anything. Whatever you want to go for in life, that's my main thing that I want them to get out of what I'm doing is whatever it is that you want out of life, you can do it. Don't just settle.
Yes.
So I understand, like, I may be missing things right now, but, I'll do my best, to get to everything else.
Yeah.
But, it's going to be times where you want to be at things, but, like, you have to make those tough calls and, understand, like, having that support system comes into play and helps out with a lot of those decisions.
I would definitely agree with that. I think that our real roles as parents, and especially as fathers, is to be our kids' superhero. Okay? And so what that means is, to me at least, what that means is that your kids have to see you do things and accomplish things that are out of the norm, okay? Because that is what's going to give them their guiding light. You see what I'm saying? So if they see their father being very passive, not taking the opportunities and things that's afforded to them, then ultimately what kind of message are you sending? What type of legacy are we trying to build? I had a client other week or so. He came in, he's a caterer, and his thing was he wanted to leave his kids something, just in case, something happened to him. And at this time, he thought what he, wanted to leave them was some grills. So he was a cook or whatever, chef, and he had some grills, like some, I guess some, smokers, I guess that's a better word for some smokers. And the smokers had some value to him, and he bought 3 of them, bought himself one, he got 3 kids, so he said he bought his 3 kids one, and his mindset is that if I leave this world, at least my kids got the smoker, that they could cook, make money, or whatever the case may be. The problem with that is that who's to say that those kids are going to become a cook,
right,
or a chef, or that is a materialistic thing. Who's to say that 10 years from now that's not rusted out and have no value? You see what I'm saying? So I challenged him. I was like, what would you think is more impactful for your kids, leaving them that grill, or you learning things at this age that you never learned before, and you teaching them things way before you learned them? Which one do you think is more impactful? Then when he sat with that for a second, he was like, man, you totally right. And I was like, we're not talking about the value that you give to a generation below us is not a monetary one. You know what I'm saying? It is us learning things and teaching it to them so they can grab it quicker than we grabbed it. You know what I'm saying? If you're learning things at 30 years old, your job is to teach it to your son now.
Yep.
Can your son grasp these concepts now? Because if so, then he's going to eclipse you just off default, because you're literally teaching him in real time.
Yep.
As I learn it, son, I'm going to teach it to you.
Yep, that's true.
When they look up and they, when they're an adult, out here in this world, and they're going to reflect on that. They're going to think, wow, my dad really set me up. My parents really set me up for success. You know what I'm saying? They really told me the things that I really needed to know, that got me that one up here in this life.
And that should be the goal,
Yes.
to, set them up, so they can see what we're doing as parents. So like you said, they can eclipse that at a much faster pace. And like you said, we don't want to continue to repeat that cycle. We need to be able to, break those generational curses. So if we can start it and they see what we're doing, like those level of expectations, they can supersede it.
Yep.
And then we can continue to keep it going even long after we're not even here. Like we can continue to for our children to build, continue to build a family legacy.
Yeah, and your son may not want to do a podcast. It's like when I was growing up, I didn't want to do the logistics with my family. But, you know what I'm saying, it allowed me, by me seeing them negotiate and just do all the things that a business owner, yes sir, all the things that a business owner would do. Like I said, I look at myself as their wildest dream. You know, and so you don't know that, hey, that's your son sitting here watching how you do what you do right now, how you're setting him up for success.
Yeah, because like for me, I tell people all the time, like when I grew up, the only thing I saw was my parents just get up and go to work. So that's what I thought life was. And then even after high school, I thought it was just college, and then you just go to work and just stay there until you finally retire. But then when I finally got out there, I quickly figured out this ain't how I want to live my life. So let me, create my own opportunities. So now that I'm learning these things, I want to, show my children, and so whatever they want to do in life, like whatever they're passionate about, they can go do it. Because I just didn't want to, thankful for everything that my parents were able to do for me, but the way that that they live, I didn't want it to be my same lifestyle. Just getting up and going to work until it's time to finally retire. I wanted to do something more for me.
Enjoy your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
So my final question as we get ready to wrap this up, this has been a great conversation. When I'm on the road and I travel, part of my self-investment tour, I like to ask everyone at the end, what does self-investment mean to you?
What it means to me? To me, I think it's the lifeblood of an entrepreneur. It should be the lifeblood of any person that is serious about self-development. I think that is literally the only way. That's where if success is what you seek, if a monetary gain is what you seek, it's very simple. You don't have to read or go through 1,000 YouTube videos to find some kind of quick way to do this and that. You could literally, truly just invest in yourself. Pour into yourself. Identify the things that you are weak in, and educate yourself and strengthen up on those. If you know you're not good at communication, read books on communication. If you're not good on public speaking, hey, every time I get in front of somebody, so I start to shake or whatever the case may be. Go to some Toastmaster classes. Do some reading on public speaking. Sharpen your sword. And be prepared. Another defining moment of success is being prepared for opportunities. Okay, and so a lot of people, when opportunity knocks on their door, they're not ready. So we need to always prepare for the fight. That's how a boxer would prepare for that match. That's the same way as a business owner, we want to prepare for these key moments that will shift our business in that positive direction.
Absolutely. It's crazy that you said it, because during that interview when I watched with Oprah, she was just saying, it's like she was just talking about luck, and her definition of luck being, preparation, mean the right opportunity.
Yes. And
just being ready for it when that time comes.
Yes.
So I love that answer. Julius, I want to thank you again for your time, man. I know it's longer than what I expected to be. I figured this was gonna be. I knew this was gonna be a great interview, but it superseded everything that I wanted it to be. Man, I really appreciate your time.
Yes, sir.
I'm glad we were able to connect. Speaking of like books and sharpening your skills, what are some books, real quick, for people watching? Like some great books that help transform your mind.
I would say Think and Grow Rich.
Yep,
that's a good one.
Yep.
I would say 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. So right there, people, y'all definitely want that one, because that really shows you how to operate in a team dynamic. You Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. You definitely wanted that.
That was a good one too.
Yep. Solid. Man, it's a ton of them. Blue Ocean is
Blue
one.
Ocean Strategy.
Yep, that's another one. Any of these type of books, you can't go wrong.
I think the first book for me, the one that changed my whole perspective on life, was when I remember when I was buying my car, and the guy was asking me where I was working at, and he said, whatever you do, just don't settle. So he's like, one of the books you need to go read is Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yep.
That was the first book that I read. It kind of like made me question a lot of things. Like, man, was school worth it? But it just changed my perspective on how people look at money and just an outlook on life. And Rich Dad Poor Dad, The Magic of Thinking Big was another
Yeah.
powerful book for me. One of my favorites that just came out over a year ago now was Will by Will Smith.
Yep.
It's one of the greatest books. I tell people that's one of the greatest books that I've ever read. You know, just him about sharing his story and you know, just being appreciative of the things you had. And he spoke about his fears and how he used laughter, you know, to make people feel happy because he went through watching his mom get beat by his father. But the things that he spoke about in that book, and one thing that he really spoke about in that book that helped me at one point was, you know, appreciating the moment, you know, as you continue to climb up this ladder of success. You know, he had a moment where he had to check himself, and he was saying how I think he had like 8 straight movies that were #1 in the box office, and I think it was, I want to say, I can't remember what movie it was. It might have been Independence Day, but he was speaking of how the movie did like 77 million the first week when his agent called him. He said, "Man, that's great." Sat back for a second, and then it was like, "Hey, you know, we made 77 million, but why do you think we didn't make 80 million?" And the agent was like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "Nah." He's like, "Yeah, I'm just wondering, just curious." It's like, you know, could we have did a better ending? Should we have shot it differently on this end or whatever? So he had so much success as to where he's had to step back and, you know, check himself and understand, appreciate what he was going through. And that was powerful for me because at one point in time, you know, 2 years ago when my book came out, I had a moment where promoted the book release came out, and then we finally hit the road and did a self-investment tour. So in a stretch of like 3 or 4 months, I went from we went from Miami to Vegas, then we went to California, then I came back home and shot an interview with the founder of Reebok. So I felt like I was just at this point where I was just kept achieving so much success. It's like, okay, I did this. How do I top this? How do I top this? How do I top this moment? And then I did the interview with the founder of Reebok. So I'm like, man, I'm achieving all of this. And I felt like I was like almost in a competition with myself to, you know, exceed this next level of expectations. And then finally went home. I think we shot an interview in Charlotte. And I came back home and I didn't record anything for maybe like 5 or 6 months because it was like I was just burnt myself out, you know, trying to like exceed the next level of expectations. So, you know, hearing something like that come from Will Smith was so powerful because it just showed me, man, no matter where you are in life, you know, just be thankful for what you have and where you are in life. Still strive for more, but just be thankful. So at that point, that book was
and be patient. I think patience is a part of it too, because there's plenty of times when, like with my first business, Tolbert Consulting Firm, the hospitality business, I put that company on the shelf multiple times because I was focused on working on something else. And so I always operate with the idea that it's never over until you quit. So if life happens and you have to take a few month break, that's okay. You know what I'm saying? Put it on the shelf a couple months, get your mind right, your mental health, you know, do whatever you need to do, then pick it back up.
Right.
You didn't lose anything.
Right. And I knew I wasn't gonna quit. It was just a point of like, man, I just needed this time to, you know, just reflect and just, you know, just relax for a minute because I was so much of like grind. Man, you did this, like what's next? What's next? And then it would come to a point where people would ask me, man, you've been traveling all over, like, where you going to next? So I'm like, so they asking me this, like, where do I need to go to now? Yeah. So just hearing all of that, you know, people were happy for me to, you know, do all these things, and which I'm proud of, like the journey, but it was just like a point where like, man, just learn to appreciate the moment, appreciate the people in your life because nothing is guaranteed. Sure. So just his perspective, hearing that from somebody from his level of success, you know, was profound for me. So that's why I put that as one of my top all-time books that I've ever read.
Yeah, for sure.
So give us one more word of encouragement as we get ready to wrap this interview up.
Yeah, so as a seasoned entrepreneur, probably the biggest advice that I could kind of give is to believe in yourself. To believe in your dreams and to know that you're not crazy. Know that everything that you dream about at night and what keeps you up at night is all real. It's, you know, and the only thing that will make it unreal is you talking yourself out of it. So come up with a solid plan, write it down, and then start walking. You know, walk in the direction of where you want to go, and let everything else go. You know, and then let it come to you.
Absolutely. Julius, I want to thank you for your time again. I really appreciate this conversation. Much needed conversation. Like I said, when we did it at the conference, I felt like it was for me again. This conversation, I felt the same way. Before we get out of here, can you tell everyone how to find you online?
Yeah, most definitely. You can find us at our website is www.tolbert, Tolbert, consultinggroup.com. You can find us at Facebook on Tolbert Consulting Group. You can find us on Instagram at Mr. Business Credit. And we're pretty much everywhere else. So,
absolutely. So thank you again for your time. Hopefully everyone enjoyed this episode of the Cross the Line podcast. So until next time, keep chasing your dreams. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. What's up, guys? This is Coach Jay with Tolbert Consulting Group. Just want to let you guys know that you are now tuned in to Cross the Line. We can be found on Facebook at Tolbert Consulting Group. We can be found on Instagram at Mr. Business Credit.